Well, hello, that's me again. Today is the 22nd of January. It is Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. And let me make a little bit of introduction today. You probably heard it before, but I never expected myself to be a political commentator, honestly. So, and when I was starting this channel, obviously I had a totally different idea of how it should be and what has to be presented to people in order to educate them. But you know what, as I already stated, and I repeat myself here, I'm just merely reiterating the point that the way the events develop, and especially globally, it is so astonishing. It is so unprecedented that, you see, I have to make some political commentaries, despite the fact that I primarily try to concentrate on the issues of the warfare and geopolitics, practical application geopolitics. So, but that's kind of the introduction I wanted to make to you, for you to remember what is this all about. And but today I will be talking about some news and some headlines. Still, I'm gonna kind of ornament them with some degree of the military. How to put it politely, commentary if you wish. So, but we'll start with this. I remind you again, because everything what people ask me constantly changes. And yesterday, basically, some people asked me why, and it's legitimate. Oh, you didn't want to do this, as if I have any kind of influence on the development of the policies and plans of the general staff. But they say you didn't want to, see the war 2 years ago. I agree, I didn't, and obviously most of Russians didn't want to deal with Ukraine at all, generally. But you know what? It is what it is. We know what happened, and now the war changed. Everything changed. Nobody wanted this, so to speak. Even Russians didn't want to this, but it's changed. And look at this. I'm repeating to you good old Svechin, good old strategy written in 1929 to the early 30s. A particular strategic policy must be devised for every war. Each war is a special case, which requires its own particular logic rather than any kind of stereotype or pattern, no matter how splendid it may be. The more our theory encompasses the entire content of the modern war, the quicker it will assist us in analyzing a given situation. And while going over some materials which I need to, and I'm using them while writing my fourth book, which is I'm kind of at the equator of this book, about half of it is ready, is the fact that when you look attentively at the politicians and military leaders in the West, you understand that they don't understand this fundamental principle, which is absolutely clear. It is an axiom. That means the statement which doesn't require any kind of proof. And it is the fact that each war has its own logic. And do not forget, the war or special military operation Russia started to fight in February 2022 has nothing to do with what is happening right now, because the nature of the war, its particular logic, has changed. And this is already Clausewitz for you if you do not want to kind of read Svechin. But again, let's not go into this, how to put it, high academic and abstract things. Let's start with the answer. So some people in their in commentaries which legitimately stated, oh, you know what, when I was talking about the subsonic missiles, it's not easy to shut down the Storm Shadow or French Scalp. Well, guess what? Yes, it's not easy, as it's not easy with anything we are dealing with the high tech. But here are the news just from today. As you can see yourself, we have the issue of, 6 Storm Shadow missiles Russian air defense shot down 5 HIMARS MLRS shells. Well, they're not really shells, they are rockets essentially. Over the past day, the press service of Russian Defense Ministry reported on Monday. In total, they give you the numbers. This is Russian Ministry of Defense as reported through the RIA News. In total, since the beginning of the special military operation, 568 Ukrainian military aircraft, 265 helicopters, 11,033 unmanned aerial vehicles, 451 anti-aircraft missile systems, 14,738 tanks and other armored vehicles, 1,205 combat vehicles of multiple launch rocket system, 7,822 field artillery guns and mortars, as well as 17,727 units of special military vehicles have been destroyed. And that gives you a little bit understanding of the scale of what is being done to the best proxy NATO ever had. And again, this is just 6 Storm Shadows. You know what? I want to reiterate and stress it, what people do not understand. Practically most of the launches of the standoff weaponry which Ukraine has, and those are primarily .U, ballistic operational tactical ballistic missiles, some kind of the iterations of the whatever they call now Olha, and of course there are Storm Shadows and Scalp, which is supplied by the British and French, who, as we know, French say they have nothing to do with the war in special military operation by killing the Russian civilians primarily. So, but the point is that the NATO ISR assets, it's primarily American. There are some British planes which are not made in Britain. They are still American planes, such as P-8 Poseidons, who hang around there, I mean, including AVAX too. They hang around in the international airspace, and because the NATO is not formally in the war with Russia, they are hiding behind those, you know, the loopholes, and they provide what is called the electromagnetic picture of Russian air defense. You cannot hide it. That's the point. In real war, of course, those planes would have been shot down in the first 48 to 72 hours, as would be the most of the satellite constellation disabled, which works for the recon, provides recon data to Pentagon and to London, and basically consequently this information is transferred to Kiev. So, and that is why it's not easy to shut down Storm Shadow, which Russian air defense does anyway, and it's basically shoots down the bulk of them. You have 1 or 2 leakers once in a while, but that's about it. The amount which have been expanded, we are talking about the effectiveness of the air defense, something like in the 98% range, so which is astonishing. But yes, some break through and sometimes they do damage, so you cannot intercept everything, but you can see yourself how it was blunted dramatically. So, and this is the thing, for example, which no NATO air defense can do, including the US air defense, which of course we know is primarily based around the completely discredited for the modern warfare Patriot PAC-3s and whatever other types of the air defense they have. And so there you have it. But and you have to understand that the situation is becoming really desperate there, and and of course the nature of the war changed, because now Russia is completely removing the Kiev regime and completely reformatting the whatever will be left of the Ukrainian state, and whatever rump will remain. And so we have to. We have the news which are absolutely astonishing. So, and Ukraine obviously asks, literally begs all those Western countries, primarily Washington also, because Washington is the main, so to speak, customer of the whatever the armed forces of Ukraine do. And here they offer themselves as proxies, you know. We kind of offer the best deal on the global security market. Give us the weapons, give us the money, and we will finish the job, Kuleba, foreign minister of Ukraine, stated. Well, Mr. Kuleba obviously doesn't understand what operational planning is, so that is why he comes up with this garbage, because actually the question is that even the whole NATO force is somehow, whatever is I don't even know the conditions when it will be possible. In the case of real war with Russia, they will not be able to do it. But hey, here they are, the classic chutzpah, and the Ukrainian diplomat also claimed that Kiev does not steal any money from American taxpayer, arguing that the sum of money allocated to Ukraine is, to say the least, a very little part. So they complain about the situation, which is, of course, the new aid, so-called aid package, and the fact that allegedly most of the money, well, that's not most, but probably about 70% of them are directly towards American military-industrial complex in their actually wasteful attempts to to restore it to whatever. They just make money. They are back and they fell back and lagging in the R&D, especially for the modern weapon systems, dramatically. And I'm talking about dramatically. In terms of missile weaponry, which is becoming the main weapon of the battlefield of the 21st century, United States is not even in the same league with Russia, lagging by a generation and possibly two. So there you go. That's we have the situation, Ukrainians offering themselves as the proxies. And if that hasn't been enough, we have now this. I mean, that's classic Business Insider and American media. Russia elite paratroopers and Marines are refusing orders to launch human wave attacks, Ukrainian official says. As you can see yourself, they really believe this garbage. So, but hey, whatever they are projecting, obviously, because this is actually exactly opposite. That the refusal of attacks, and especially in human waves, are the case for armed forces of Ukraine. Russians doing their job really well, and they already inside Avdiivka, and that is just, tells you pretty much everything you need to know, because there are also advancements on the other sectors of the front. And then we have this thing. Or if it tells you their level of desperation. Here is their, this is unfreaking believable. I mean, this is just absolute cretinism. I don't know, they evidently consume wholesale amounts of the cocaine and whatever they smoke there, but Kiev still hopes to force Moscow into negotiations on its terms. It's like wet fantasies. It's not Kiev, of course, it's Washington. And guess what? As President Vladimir Zelensky pushes toward with his so-called peace formula, which has been dismissed by Kremlin as absurd, Ukrainian officials continue to propose additional terms and conditions. And when they talk about this document, which is supposed to be with these peace talks, which obviously, the whole world will support Ukraine as they think so, and they say that this document must include Russia's renunciation of nuclear weapons because it poses a threat to the world, Mr. Gavriluk says. And they talk about what is global defeat, and Zelensky into this collection of the bunch of the cretins in Davos for the World Economic Forum. But when you look at this, yeah, they are that stupid. And we're not talking about only the Kiev regime, because you have to understand, Kiev regime is the conduit, it's a conductor in many respects also of the interests of the United States. And hey, why don't we throw something on the wall and see if it sticks? So they want Russia now to, basically refuse or reject its own nuclear arsenal, which makes American arsenal absolutely look ancient in comparison. So it is all the desperate attempts to create some kind of the, conditions and force Russians or, to they still think that they can negotiate. There will be no negotiation, there will be dictation of the terms of the unconditional surrender. And if that hasn't been enough, now you have this German Lügen press waking up. And can you believe this? These were the guys who were telling that Russians are actually just about to surrender, and armed forces of Ukraine will be at the gate of Moscow Kremlin like in no time, and this was in 2022. And they talk about the situation. The guy from the Die Welt in Kiev reports that the situation on the front lines is becoming increasingly disadvantageous for Ukraine. A Kiev-based correspondent with Die Welt basically speaks about, and he's talking about there is a lack of the ammunition, there is a lack of personnel, there is no will to do anything. Mostly they sit on their, or let's put it this way, many of them are on the needle, quote unquote. Basically they take hard drugs and they thrown into this meat grinder at the front line, and they just, Russians kill them. That's what it is. If that hasn't been enough, now we have also the names of the French mercenaries who were in Kharkiv during the strike of the Russian armed forces. And French volunteers gave RIA News the list of the first 13 mercenaries from France, and as you can see yourself, there is a list of those Albert Emeric, Alexis Drion, Béranger, Guillaume and Minot, Charles Bortin Roussel, and on and on and on. And as you might expect, obviously, through those, whatever the 60 plus who have been killed, and the other wounded, Russians know their names, and obviously they will already told French ambassador in Moscow that, you know what, yeah, we know who they are, we know who of them are cadre French officers, and there you go. That's why this hysteria. And if that hasn't been enough, now they admit that the armed forces of Ukraine started talking about fleeing Krinky. And this is from Financial Times. I don't want to even go to Financial Times. I don't read most of the British tabloids. Financial Times is the tabloid of the level of the Sun or Daily Mail, so they just pretend that they mean something. It's a bunch of the collection of the imbeciles there who write for British press. But a reconnaissance officer of the armed forces of Ukraine predicted a retreat from the bridgehead in Krinka in the Dnieper. And he's talking about that the fact is the Marine Corps could not sustain the pace of the offensive and probably lost the initiative long ago. I don't know what kind of offensive they are talking about. They use big words, but actually, when you listen to what they produce, basically, and feed it to Western public, it's absolute garbage. It's operationally, tactically illiterate. What pace of the offensive, or as it is said, the tempo of the offensive in Krinky? Basically, it's throwing unbelievable number of the whatever is left of Marines in Ukraine, and they're slaughtered there wholesale. And so he said, and probably lost the initiative long ago, said the soldier who introduced himself as Ivan. Well, I don't know if they had the initiative there to start with, because you need to be absolute cretin to plan the amphibious operation with whatever little the amphibious means they had to get themselves into the swampy and bushy area under the Russian guns. But then again, listen, this was planned in Pentagon and in London. These guys do not understand what they are dealing with, and they think rigidly, they think in cliches. And he's talking, he's admitting, according to him, Ukrainian troops are suffering heavy losses. Or, heavy losses is not the word, actually, to describe what is happening in Krinky. It is basically fertilizing the whole soil with the piles of bodies of Ukrainian soldiers. This is the level of NATO operational planning, which is undertaking now 90,000, as they call personnel, some kind of the maneuvers, which still 90,000 really go impress somebody else. And if that hasn't been enough, we have now this guy. By the way, it's unbelievable. I know who this guy is. Former NATO representative in Moscow called for genocide of Russians. Yes, he did, actually. So he is the captain, which is the captain of the first rank in Russia. Ukraine should not be ashamed of aggression against Russia, even if it involves the destruction of population, such a statement made by the former chief of staff of NATO military mission in Moscow, retired captain first rank of the US Navy, Harry Tabach. He's Yuri, actually, in an interview with the Ukrainian YouTube channel Vyshka. Well, who is this Mr. Tabach? And let's take a look what he also proposes to do with Russians. Here they give a little bit short CV of him. Harry Yuri Tabak, native from a family of migrants from Moscow, who moved to the United States in 1976 when he was actually 14 years old. He has held various positions in the State Department, including working at the U.S. Embassy in Russia. In the late 2000s, he headed the headquarters of the NATO military mission in Moscow, responsible for relations between NATO Military Committee and Russian Ministry of Defense. He retired in 2011. I'll give you the CV of Mr. Tabak. And they basically, Russians already speak openly that Ukrainian special services, including the main intelligence directorate GUR of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, use terrorist methods. Head of the main intelligence directorate Kirill Budanov declared his involvement Kiev terrorist attacks against the prominent Russians. At the same time, the deputy head of main intelligence directorate GUR of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Vadim Skibitsky, admitted in September that Kiev uses NATO methods to attack Russia. Yes, it is the part and parcel basically of their NATO operations, killing civilians. That's what they do. They just, it's in the plans. That's how they plan things because, well, obviously they cannot fight a real war. So basically, well, they all reduce themselves to the terrorist methods. But if that hasn't been enough, you have to understand who Tabak is, despite all those large words and titles. The guy actually has only about 3 to 4 weeks, I don't know, maybe months in the paratroop schools, but his actually main degree is in pharmaceuticals. He is the military doctor. Nothing wrong about military doctors, but the guy obviously, simply because he spoke Russian, he was stuck into the middle of those missions. But I heard him talk. The guy is absolute nincompoop. He doesn't have even basic understanding of the operations and strategy, and of course he has zero technical expertise. Primarily he was used as the liaison, basically, and when you say chief of staff of mission, they do not plan any military operations because they have no basically qualifications and background in this. So that's your guy. The guy, you know, being no less than, you know what, military doctor. He proposes to genocide, you know, Russians. So there you go. This is the type of the military people who serve, not all of them, make no mistake. I don't use the broad brush, but you will find many of those in Pentagon, CIA, let alone London. Most of them are genocidal maniacs. And when you look at this and you begin to, you know, just wondering what the hell is going on. I mean, but let me show you something. Let's go down the memory lane a little bit. Here's this, oh yeah, Royal United Service Institute in London. Look at this. 5 days after the start of their special military operation. Look at this. This is Russia. This is the best and most important think tank of Lilliputian British military, which has actually Lilliputian military education programs, including Sandhurst. But look at this. On the 5th day, get this, on the 5th day, this is 28 February 2022, on the 5th day of Russian invasion of Ukraine, one of many unanswered questions is why Russia has launched a military campaign at huge cost with maximalist objectives and then declined to use the vast majority of its fixed-wing combat aircraft. Yeah, this is the question that is I specifically kind of get you back 20 months, you know, and which could have been asked only by amateur. And I begin to really think that they are amateurs there. They see things in cliches. They have this, you know, yardstick, so to speak, and the totem which they, worship, which is, of course, beating the crap out of the third-rate military in Iraq. And they don't understand how strategy works, let alone how operations are done, especially including involving the multi-domain operations. So, because the guy is into their propaganda. Look at this. On the 5th day operation, he asks, based on the propaganda supplied by the, of course, Kiev regime, he asks why Russians are not using fixed-wing aircraft. Well, I don't know why he decided to come up with this garbage, but look at this. This is very instructive. His name is Professor Justin Bronk, Senior Research Fellow, Air Power and Technology, Military Science. So let's take a look what he who Mr. Justin Bronk is. And when we and this is professor, make no mistake, he teaches in the Norwegian, well, that's a huge air power, right? Norwegian Air Force Academy. But look what we get here. The guy graduated Westminster School. It's a public school for the elite kids who become something like Bojo, Boris Johnson, or Sunak, or the Liz Truss. That's pretty the level of education they give them there. And then look what he gets. Oh my gosh. University of York, Bachelor of Arts, History. Okay, nothing wrong in history if it's taught properly. I don't know what grade first class is, but I believe it's very, important. Then, of course, he graduates, he studies in the London School of Economics and Political Science. That means he has no education in economics and certainly in politics. Then, of course, guess what? King's College, London, PhD. I mean, okay, imagination and design in British combat aircraft development, Defense Studies Department. I don't know how to even comment on that. I mean, when you have a degree in imagination and in the design of British aircraft, which do not exist anymore for many years, because Britain cannot, out of its own resources, create modern combat aircraft. It is all US made. Or either, combination of the European powers, such as they produce the Eurofighter Typhoon, which is already becoming kind of, well, it's a good plane, but its time is over in the modern battlefield. When you look at this, and this is the guy who already on the 5th day of special military operation was actually, preaching to the fact that, where's the Russian Air Force? Well, I have news for this guy. By March 23, 2023, Russian Air Force, its fixed-wing aircraft, not to speak about helicopters, flew more than 140,000 sorties. This is the operational tempo British Air Force cannot even, is beyond their reach. And the point here is not this, the fact that by now we would say throughout the special military operation, even if we linearly extrapolate from March 2023, but again, it's not linear. The Russian basically sortie operational tempo was growing. So I would say we're looking at 350,000 sorties by today easily. The point here is, of course, this boy, whatever his Bronk is, he didn't study the Syrian campaign. You remember what they were talking about when Russian Air Force moved in Syria in 2015? They stated that they cannot sustain this operational tempo. Well, guess what? For years, the Russians sustained this operational tempo, and I believe in 2015, 2016, they already flew 35,000 sorties, which for their theater of operations and the type of the enemy which was there is absolutely huge. And they still couldn't understand, couldn't, basically wrap their brains around the fact how they maintain this possibility, the operational tempo. How those planes fly all the time, they repair them. Yeah, you repair planes, you do maintenance. And this is what is the shocking thing for all of them. Russian planes, including extremely advanced planes, state-of-the-art, such as Su-35 or Su-57 or Su-30 SMs, which are extremely sophisticated, advanced, net-centric fighters with outstanding radar and weapon system suite which they carry, they require much less time to maintain than any Western aircraft, and they still continue to fly. That's kind of, they cannot, wrap their brains around it. And I just exposed to you, presented to you with this one of many guys. This guy is in RUSI, in Royal United Services Institute, which is basically their washout for all those big honchos from the British Defense Ministry. That means they have no clue. The only thing they can do is propaganda. That's it. I don't know what kind of the military studies department in the King's College. It is a joke. It is a joke. They teach nothing there. And that's your main experts from the West. And when you look also at this absurdity which is being still, thrown around, despite, of course, loss of interest of the Western countries in the special military operation and what is happening to whatever is left in the with the armed forces of Ukraine, we have another thing. So to demonstrate some kind of emulate or simulate some kind of the activity, we have Mr. Blinken who says, you know what? Revkov commented on the US idea of a notification regime for missile launches, but the US initiative to create a common notification regime for ballistic missile launches within the framework of the Nuclear Five does not bring any added value for Russia, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybkov said in an interview in RIA News, which was today. There are no negotiations on the issue in the Nuclear Five. We can only mention a few episodes of discussion of the relevant initiative previously put forward by the United States, which showed that idea is not consensual, and he already stated, that Russia has a bilateral agreement with the United States in terms of their informing of the other side about ballistic missile launches, and Russia has same with China. So what's the point? Well, the point to simulate some kind of diplomatic activity, and the question is why Russia should have any separate discussion within whatever Nuclear Five. That's basically waste of time, waste of the resources. And this is what we observe throughout the whole situation right now in the combined West. And, as I already stated, many people still do not understand why I'm talking about it. I have my vested interest, which I constantly stress. I live in the United States. I'm a citizen. I'm interested in this country being preserved as the sane political and, economic, geographic, cultural entity. What I see, I'm not happy with that, as most of the Americans are not. And when I talk about the real issues, it's not about being dissident, by the way. Dissidents are primarily a different type of thing. People don't understand the difference. No, it's about the fact, speaking out facts. That's what we see. And this is what I wanted to tell you about today, just commenting on basically some headlines and answering a couple questions. So this is what I needed to tell you today. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. Or those who can afford, please buy me a coffee or two or support me on Patreon. And what can I say? Have a nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.